And welcome to another Biddle. How is everybody today?
Wonderful.
Good.
How are
I
you,
don't.
Nate?
Doing
I don't have a
fine.
sign that says "Open for
Wow.
Business," so let's just pretend. Here, let's pull the string on that. So here, this is Biddle, Big Daddy Linux Live. I'm not Rocco. I'm Cubicle Nate. We're here. We're set up to have a talk about tech around the virtual water cooler in the break room. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. We do have some things on the docket. But first, I would like to thank Rocco for starting the Biddle community, where I truly felt like a member of the nicest group of encouraging and uplifting people with phenomenal skills and abilities at a whole range of levels. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I anticipate we're going to have a good discussion tonight. A little bit of a smaller group, it looks like, and I think that is totally cool. Or is that a whiny way of saying I wish there were more people? No, I think it's fine.
No?
Well, it might get smaller if I fall asleep in the middle of it.
Well, I'm sure that means I was that entertaining. So thank you very much, Big Pod, ahead of time for saying that I'm boring and droning. It makes me think.
Oh, it means that I might fall asleep. Because,
It happens.
Yeah, that.
Well, he he wore himself out learning. What were you learning today?
Python.
Python.
Python,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
saw you on Yannick's stream. Was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember when now.
Yeah, day before.
Are you working with him on the on the what is that, the software boutique?
Not directly. I'll probably be packaging it.
Oh, okay,
That'll probably be my job.
excellent.
What format are you packaging stuff in?
I'll probably packaging software boutique as a snap, but I do snaps and devs nowadays mostly.
Okay. We'll be talking about a subject touching on packaging. a little
Yay!
while. Hint.
It's good times. Wasn't sure if anybody else had anything interesting they've been doing in Linux. Oh, and then there's sleepy-eyed Vince here. I'm sure to, say something mean.
Just come into the room and say pancakes. I mean,
That's my excuse for being a little late. So sorry, fellas.
that might be
Pancakes?
the most passive aggressive thing I've ever heard.
How is everybody doing?
Good. How you doing, Vince?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
So Nate was just asking folks if we've had any Linux adventures this week.
I just started to try Bodhi.
And
It was
And what do you
new
think of
on
it?
the list. Compared to Fedora, it was great. I did that
Wow.
for Jason's sake. The couple of things about Bodhi that you have to understand. One of the things is it's off of, they forked the Enlightenment window manager. It's not really a desktop. And I think if you go into the mindset thinking that it's a desktop, you're going to probably hate it. It's not a desktop. It's a window manager that has some desktop features in it. It's smooth. It's light. It didn't crash really at all. The only two issues that I had were I had some screen tearing, which I went online and said, how do I fix screen tearing in Ubuntu? Because it's an Ubuntu-based environment, basically. And within 10 seconds, I found an answer. The only other trouble I had is Bodhi has a software package manager that's a web page. And for some reason, when I went to install Firefox, it said it was already installed when it was not. Other than that, there was no issues really at all with it. It's quick, it's fast, it's light. But once again, if you really don't like that environment, because it is a window manager, I'm pretty sure it's not a desktop. I could see somebody going and running away from it.
So it's kind of like an open box setup.
Yeah, that would be a very good example for it. But I think if you're in this mindset and you're going to go into it and going, I want, you know what I mean? This is what
Well,
I want.
And interestingly enough, so Steve Steve's very own, has been testing that over the last few days.
Mhm.
And his complaints have mainly been around the fact that I think his expectation was more of a traditional desktop environment. So he was having some other issues too. I mean, I think he said it'd be on a little later, so maybe he can. But it was interesting to hear you say that you tried it, and we did quite a while ago, probably over a year ago. We tested it as part of a Biddle distro challenge, and I do remember just some peculiar things, some of the animations and think just sort of eclectic, I guess would be a good way to put it. Just kind of they were sort of doing their own thing, which, that's cool. That's kind of what Linux and open source to me is all about, expressing yourself through software, right?
It seemed to split the screens. When I have two screens, it seemed to make them two screens, like two separate monitors on almost, because like when I was trying to alt tab, if I wasn't on the right side of the screen, it wouldn't alt tab the programs. You know what I mean? For
Mhm.
that, yeah. And so like, I guess you could probably make a virtual screen. Like I could split the two screens I have into two other screens and have four screens. It seems like I could do that easily in this program. I didn't try it because I just didn't, but that was one of the things I noticed that was kind of quirky about it. But like I said, everything really actually worked. I installed VirtualBox, I installed Zoom, I installed Firefox, but I had to install it through the terminal because their application didn't work for some reason. Instead, it was already installed. But then, what was it? Synaptic was already there. I mean, it had a lot of themes to pick from. Like, I must have 30 different color themes and choices to pick from.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, a Bodhi came up from the top as a moving emanation for the wallpaper in the beginning. I can't say it looked bad at all. I mean, I don't got anything really horrible to say about it other than the fact that it's not really a desktop. And I don't know if that's a bad
Mhm.
thing. I don't think it is.
I found that the Bodhi experience was actually quite good. I did when we did it last time in Biddle, we actually the desktop distribution challenge. I particularly enjoyed Bodhi. I mean, it wasn't my flavor of Linux, but I did find I thought that the animations were cute, and I liked, and maybe that's not the right word. They're cool, and I like they added a little bit of flair to the desktop, and it was its own experience, and it used a really small memory footprint. So how they were able to pack all that kind of eye candy into a small footprint I thought was pretty amazing myself.
So we did that on July 20th of 2019. So it's been almost 2 years.
It's been a while, I guess.
Yeah. And yeah, and so I think that was the feedback at the time for the most part was that people, I don't think anyone truly disliked it. I think there was just a lot of sort of, I'm not sure I would use this, it's interesting, that sort of thing. I think a window manager, I would say probably works better on maybe hardware that would struggle with a more modern desktop environment potentially. But I could see if you just like it makes me think of, when I think of OpenBox, I like, what is it? I can't think of, I just looked at it the other day too. It's an Arch-based distribution, which it's an i3 session or an OpenBox session. Arch Labs. Yeah, Arch Labs. And it's really slick. If you go into the OpenBox session, it's the same look and feel of desktop, very minimal, but you get the right click, and then each window, launches as a window that you can interact with, like a window manager, obviously. And then you can do an i3 session instead if you prefer to have tiling window manager. So I think that's a interesting take on it. And I guess there's room for everything. I mean, so Jinder, do you think you'd actually use it? Because I think that's what the question that we always arrive at when we do distro challenges was, would you actually consider keeping it on your system and using it?
I have I got a number of laptops for free. They're all 32 gigabyte, what do they call them? MMC board computers. that Windows can't run on anymore because 32 gigabytes is not enough. I got like a stack of them. I got like 2 or 3. I got 3 of them, I think. I think I gave one away already. And I'm running Bodhi on that. And I probably will never run anything but Bodhi on it. It runs that well on it. I think it runs better than most of the desktops and most of the operating systems I did try. So I probably will keep it on that. So, I mean, but once again, I think the biggest problem I had, like I said, was the biggest learning curve was trying to deal with the two screens I had. With one screen, I didn't really notice many issues with it, especially on a throwaway laptop that I'm just basically taking outside to look at the stupidest things in the world when I'm eating my lunch.
Got it.
And I'm not
Yeah.
really too concerned about what's running on the back, you know, how the operating
Right.
system really is.
Yeah.
Or the user interface, so to speak.
Right. Launch your browser and get on with your life kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping it. I mean, I would definitely try other ones on it for fun, but
Sounds like White Chocolate in the chat has some experience with it. He's saying the version 6 is improved and that it's a very nice lightweight distro. So there you go.
You know, I'm looking at my review that I used, that I did on it previously, and I wonder, I really would like to compare it now because it's Bodhi 5 that I last tried. I mean, because the desktop I thought looked great, and I don't know. I mean, you don't call it a desktop environment, but you know, what are Mochka? What's the
yeah, it's forked from Enlightenment,
yeah?
evidently.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
they add some improvements to it, I got.
But the overall with it, I set mine to a dark theme. I don't know if it's still dark theme by default, but I think it's a very comfortable looking desktop, and you know, playing Steam right out of the gate with it was fine. I had no issues with it. I mean, I was amazed that at least at the time it was 183 megabytes of RAM is all it used just to operate, and I think that's pretty impressive with as big of a stack that's required to run a computer these days. That's really pretty impressive. Although for our Amiga fans out there so I think we have one besides me, I think Explore, that's 128 megabytes was the max for an Amiga computer. So you couldn't quite run this on an Amiga, I guess.
Close.
For those that care.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So I am curious to see what Steve, because Steve said he had a lot of issues, and I think he's saying not my cup of tea, but he was actually running into like errors and like I think he loaded Zoom or something and it wouldn't, like he couldn't Alt Tab. There was just something weird about the way it was handling. Maybe specifically those types of applications. Who knows? But anyway. So the release of Gecko was it this week or or last week? I'm not sure. But the version number
It's kind of silly.
Nate put a note in here to talk to the project lead about version numbering, but it's 999.210517.0.
It makes total sense, and it's very catchy. It's like, oh yeah, version 999. What did you say? 210517.
Oh yeah, totally.
Of course.
Which
I
is
mean,
obviously the year and the month and the day, but I mean, yeah, whatever. It's very specific.
It's the rolling release of Gecko. I didn't notice if he's doing a stable anymore. I think he's just maintaining the rolling release now.
You know what? I think he actually, it's on the page, and that's a good question whether or not it was updated. I don't, I'll actually look while we're talking.
So what
because when you,
yeah, what I think what
Sorry,
Gecko tries to be, or what it's aiming to be, I should say. That's a horrible word. Yoda said, "Do or do not. There is no try." What he does is he basically takes OpenSUSE and he creates spins of each of the desktops, so you can try a specific desktop like you would on like an Ubuntu or Fedora with their specific spins. And instead of using the OpenSUSE installer, he uses I want to say it was, I can't remember which one it is now, but he uses he'll use a more friendly installer. So people who are like less those like Matt DLN or whatever, he
Dark one.
Matt Mark Dark One, he he complains that the OpenSUSE installer is so terrible, but it's because he just does desktops. He doesn't do anything with servers. And this would basically solve his gripe of the OpenSUSE distribution, because it doesn't do anything but just it includes the repositories for Pacman and the main repositories. He doesn't do any changes. He just uses those and makes it so it installs all the codecs and everything else that you would need to run the desktop.
I had a question for you because I ran into this. I tested a few different releases. So the downloads are split between static and rolling. So it's Leap or Tumbleweed.
Correct.
And all of the different desktop environments, which there are quite a few. Something I noticed on the rolling, and I think it was, I'm going to say it was Plasma, because it was either Plasma or GNOME. The man package and none of the man pages, nothing was there. It literally wasn't even installed. And I was like, it's the first Linux distribution I can remember where, because I was trying to look up a command, an option for a command, and I just typed man in the, I think that's pretty common, right? Most people do that. And it just said man's not installed. And I'm like, did I type it wrong? It was very odd to not have it be on the system. And then I realized, I went back and tried to install it. And then I realized you can't just install it after the fact, because if you look at when packages are installing and it's actually writing those entries as the packages install, there may be a way to go back and retrospectively rerun the build for the man pages for every package that's installed. I couldn't find a way, but anyway, so I think maybe by using the Calamares installer and having it be a small snapshot, he has to make choices about what software is included and what isn't. And maybe he just felt like man pages are not something that everybody uses. I'm not sure.
It could be, but I would think man pages have a really small footprint, because it's just text. So I can't imagine that would be.
It could be the type of thing where he was that close, kind of already
had to
took all
shave
the
off
low hanging
3K.
fruit. Yeah, exactly. And had to shave. Well, it could have been some amount of megabytes, and it was
Sure.
just like the difference between being over 2 gigs and being under. And I don't know. I don't have the answer to why it's that way. I just was very surprised to see. And like Nate was saying, the difference between regular OpenSUSE and Gecko is that you are getting a desktop specific copy of an image. And when you install it, you use Calamares instead of the OpenSUSE installer. And it's just a very straightforward Calamares install.
It also installs all the codecs for multimedia, so that you don't have to go through that process. It saves you that step as well.
Yeah.
So-
It's a very easy experience, and it is easy to complain. I've complained about Fedora's installer as well. Like, again, Anaconda can be the same way when you're doing disk partitioning. It can be a little kind of difficult to wrangle it to get exactly what you're trying to get done. And OpenSUSE can be the same way. There's some things with Wi-Fi and other things that can be a little more difficult than they need to be, I guess is the way I'd say it. And so this is an easy way for someone to just get a snapshot of whatever desktop they want to run of OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed, or Leap on their system. So,
yeah. But so this release. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say the last thing to say on this was just that he does very lightly customize the desktop. So it's just some custom theming, icons, and a wallpaper. But otherwise, it's pretty much completely stock, as far as I can tell. So.
Yeah, this is the release of a new build of the Tumbleweed edition. So he hasn't done one of those in a while, from what I can tell. But so 3 days ago is when this is released. I would like to try that one out. I just want to see how his Plasma looks. I'm going to do it on a test machine at some point in time. I don't have any time right now. Probably won't be till the end of June, actually.
Yeah, it's really, from what I can tell, again, that's why I wanted to add that piece, was it's pretty much just stock. I don't see any real changes. there's nothing. It's even lighter than something like Endeavor is to Arch, where they add some utilities and tools on top of just a vanilla Arch install. I would say this is OpenSUSE with even less changes.
Yeah, that's what he says. The package or the project maintainer. So it doesn't do, just real light changes.
It's an interesting project. If you haven't looked at it, it really is. It's a super fast way to spin up an OpenSUSE system. I just think it's an interesting slant, an interesting take on, if you are turned off by that install process, this solves that problem very specifically and not really much else.
Right. That's the only thing. Yeah, for the most
Yeah.
part. That's cool. So he has GNOME 40, a Cinnamon 4.8.6, Plasma 5.21.5, Budgie Desktop, LXQT, XFCE, Mate, and a Pantheon, which I think is interesting. It might be fun to try out the Pantheon.
I actually did. Funny enough,
really?
because I always forget. There's so few projects that actually compile Pantheon as an option.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw it, I thought, oh, I'll take a look, and it's Pantheon. It's he has it set up where the dock is on the left side instead of the bottom, which is the only real noticeable difference. It doesn't have the same sort of initial fit and finish polish that like Elementary has, just by the way that they have the very clean wallpaper and
Mm-hmm.
some of those things, the icon sets and things like that. But yeah, it's if you like Elementary if you like Pantheon but you don't like Elementary, this is a way to run Pantheon on an OpenSUSE base.
So we should call it Open Pantheon, or Elementary
just to make it even more confusing.
Right. Elementary SUSE. That might be
It's
fun.
all about choice.
Right. So another
It's fun.
distribution. Yeah, I think it is. That's what makes Linux fun. Is just the, it's
Wondrous
it's a
variety.
right. It's
Yeah.
it's a canvas to paint your digital life upon.
Yeah, I have to imagine that he at some point got annoyed by the installer and thought, could I take a snapshot, bundle it, and then just use a different installer? And took the time to figure it out, and then said, I'll throw it up on SourceForge and see if anyone's interested in it. I mean, that is that's forking, that's open source. Like, that is the definition of, like, I don't like this thing, so I'm going to change it. So, yeah.
Well, what's interesting is, like, the OpenSUSE project totally supports somebody doing that. Like, that doesn't, like, you want to do that? Go ahead. Like, oh, okay. Which I think is funny. Is it Ubiquity? No, what is it? What installer is that?
Calamares.
I wonder if it's in the... He might just be building it right there on the Open Build service.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because, I mean, there's no reason why he couldn't. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
It's right there.
That is definitely... OpenSUSE is definitely, the Open Build service is one of those secret sauce kind of things when you get in and start playing around, the one-click installs, and yeah.
Actually, it's in the official release of Tumbleweed. It's actually part of the official build, so you can use Calamares in OpenSUSE. It's maintained.
There you go.
I think that's pretty great. Yeah, I'd be interested in trying the now two of them. I'd like to see the Pantheon, and I want to see what it does with Plasma. If I don't like his theme, I can just install the one that I made, so that'll work. Which you can download right from the Software Center. So another distribution that came out is Laka, or I think Laka, probably Laka 3.0. It's a LibreElec-based lightweight Linux distribution with the goal of turning a small computer into a full-blown game console. Now, if Thomas was here, I would have poked him on that and say, hey, how does that chomp away at your Draugr OS? But since he's not here, I can't say that to him. So he's probably gonna, maybe his ears are burning. He'll hop on. I don't know. So what do you think about the idea of, game console based Linux distributions? Is that something that you think has any kind of traction, or do you think that's just kind of a niche of a niche? It seems like Adam could chime in on this one. What he thinks. He probably doesn't care.
Well, I'm sorry to jump in, but I mean, if you remember, probably was about a month ago, I was asking about like retro or gaming consoles and systems and like how I would set them up. And so the idea of being able to just have a release that's prepackaged and put together with all that stuff done for me, it seems like it would be useful.
Well, Max Henning in the chat says it's really cool on the Pi.
Yeah,
And,
RetroPie.
Or it could be running that too. I don't know, but he just said on the Pi. So Laka on the Pi. It says the UI is similar to the PlayStation 3 or PSP XMB. I don't know what that is, the PSP XMB. But I know the PlayStation 3 is, and that's interesting. Because it'd be interesting if it had if it had like the RetroPie stuff all integrated. That'd actually be pretty cool if you can do all that.
So if you look at the download links in the news announcement, it has Laka, RPI, ARM, RPI, ARM 3.0, RPI 4. So there's a lot of our, RetroPie stuff specifically. So
yeah, I see that. But also, I mean, x86 as well. That's a cool idea, actually. I would.
Well, Raspberry Pi, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be worth trying out. My issue with the RetroPie, I've had issues with running RetroPie, like installing it. It wouldn't actually take like the Raspberry Pi 4. Last time I tried that, it just didn't work. Yeah. So I should probably try it again. Maybe I'll try it in the Pi 3. I have a couple of those lying around doing nothing, waiting to be used, but not right now. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works. It says, it's RetroArch console emulator. That's what it says. So that'd be interesting. It would be fun to play to see how that would work. That might be fun just to set up as just a on the living room TV instead of all the different consoles. No, actually, I think I'd rather have the actual hardware.
I don't own any consoles, so Raspberry right now is RetroPie for me.
Right, and that's probably a good use of it for those that don't have the space, especially or the desire to keep old things running like some weirdos do.
I mean, how many RCA jacks do you have on your television? I wonder.
So what I actually the Nintendo consoles, like from I think Wii on down, have a proprietary plug of theirs, whatever. I have that going right to HDMI, so I can then just plug an HDMI cable into that. So most things, so the only thing I don't have going HDMI is the original Xbox right now. Everything else is going HDMI, and I have an HDMI switcher, so it only takes one port on the TV. I can just switch between them. Got a little remote and everything. Can, it's good times. Just like that. But,
what do you do about HD lag?
So that is a problem with the older systems, and that's it's actually not too bad on my TV. So there is a little bit of, because modern TVs are just slow compared to the old CRTs, but for the most part it's not too bad. It's no worse than playing like on the retro console or whatever on a like a Wii U or something like that. There is a little bit of a lag with the on TVs, but if you hook to a good monitor, it's fine. It's not awful. But it's good times. The one that I like playing the most right now is the Super Nintendo with the Super Game Boy. I think that's what it's called, the Super Boy, something like that. So you can play the Game Boy games on the Super Nintendo on an HD television. It's great. It's perfect use.
What do your kids think about the retro games?
So my oldest, he says it's not about the graphics, it's about the fun. So he's cut from the same fabric as I am, apparently, and he likes all the old games. In fact, he actually took one of the consoles off of my my gaming rack, and the one that he took to put in his room is the VIC-20 of all things. So he actually has that. And I got this penultimate cartridge from the Future Was 8-bit, and so it has a cartridge that has just tons of games on there, and just it's like a menu-driven thing with the joystick or whatever. And you it also has like RAM expander and everything else. So it goes up to the maximum of 35 kilobytes. So that's a lot for a VIC-20 with that game stand with 4 kilobytes. But he likes that one. He likes playing the games on that one for some reason. So they
Are those cartridges
on
on a
the
VIC-20?
The VIC-20. Well, I only have cartridges for the VIC-20. So I just actually have
Okay.
I have a series of cartridges and then one penultimate cartridge. And some of the modern games that are made for the VIC-20 are actually not too bad. They're pretty fun. So you can use that like a.
But it's easy. I was just thinking it's easy for him to actually use the system because it's cartridge based.
Yep, it is. And then the cartridge I have in there most of the time is it's a menu driven thing, and there's literally hundreds of games on it. So there's just a few of them.
It
There's
doesn't
only a
have
few
to
that really
load
plays.
from tape.
Nope. Or from disk drive. So he so he likes that one right now. I also have a C64 Maxi that he that is actually hooked to a TV. It's actually hooked to a 4K TV of all things, with a curved screen type. So it's really just funny to see 320 by 200 graphics on this giant 4K screen. It's probably the best usage of the 4K screen, honestly.
Like the
But,
pixels are as wide as your fingers.
Pretty much, yeah. It's about like the size of my pinky. If you go up to it, no, I don't think it's not that bad, but it's close. And that's a fun. That's actually not a bad experience. You can tell there is some lag. I think the 4K screens are they almost seem slower, but it's displaying it in 720p, so I don't know what the problem is. But who knows?
Yeah, LCD TVs have much higher latencies than CRTs did.
Right.
You can get like upscalers and stuff, like a FrameMeister or RetroTink or something like that. You can plug in older sources to, and then it'll basically do the scaling and stuff for you instead of making the TV do it. So the TV just gets the raw like signal from the upscaler, but the upscaler does all of the changes and stuff lag free, so you don't have that extra latency when you convert it to something like an HDTV. But those are kind of pricey. They get pretty expensive. They're neat though.
Yeah, I saw the people talking about the RetroTink.
Yeah, and the open source scan converter is another one.
Yeah, there's actually
Yeah.
quite a bit out there. There's even there's one I just saw that converts analog or digital RGB from older systems directly to HDMI. That uses a Raspberry Pi Zero.
I think that's using the Pi Zero.
Yep.
Neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's another project. Explorer will like this one. There's another project for the Amiga 500 and I think 1000. You actually take out the custom chip, this Denise chip, and you put another board in there with a Raspberry Pi, and then put the chip back in there, and it converts that directly digitally to HDMI out, so you actually bypass whatever the onboard, either RF modulator or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's pretty impressive.
That's very impressive. Stuff I couldn't figure out.
No, I don't know how people do that. Like, it's amazing that people have that ability. They can figure out these things.
Straight up electron wrangling.
Right. Like, they know how. The fact that someone knows how to do that is amazing. But yeah, there's actually a bunch of other, like, people figured out how to convert the RGB or the digital RGB, the analog RGB directly to HDMI signaling as well through Raspberry Pi. Like, it's astounding what people are able to do. Like, I don't get it. Of all the things to spend your time on, that's what it is. And I'm totally excited and happy that they do that. But I mean,
yeah, glad someone else is doing that. Yeah.
yeah, here, take my money. I appreciate it. Here's the tip. Much appreciated. But yeah, those are cool things for sure. I do want to get I lost my train of thought. I would like to have one of those for my my Amiga to go to the RGB on that to an HDMI instead of how I'm doing it now. But actually, I'm still using the CRT that it came with right here. It's not a bad screen. It's just kind of small now. I thought it was big at the time, but apparently 13 inches got smaller over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, I
4:3
remember
ratio.
having a 13-inch TV as a kid, thinking this was a big TV, and
Mhm.
like now I'm like, I guess 49 will do. It really feels that way. Like 49-inch TVs feeling kind of small, but yeah, how we forget. Arguably,
I had
my
a-
eyes were a lot better as a kid too. So
Right.
Probably. It's probably why you
Yeah,
burned them out, because you're sitting so close to it like this on your bed.
Well, that's the truth, because
Yeah.
you see the pictures of, people in a living room sitting 10 feet away on a couch across the room looking at this tiny screen, and you think, there's no way you could actually see anything on that
Right.
television.
the parents are just pretending, and you notice the kids are like 6 inches away from the screen in those pictures.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, look, I'm gonna get full screen Power Rangers even if I have to go blind.
That's right. I had an old 13-inch black and white television as a kid. So all my memories of retro computing and like the Atari, Commodore 64, they're all like to me, I grew up on a black and white TV, and only on special occasions could I take my Commodore 64 into the living room and use the color TV, the family color TV. That was always a big deal.
Oh
So,
man.
Yeah. Very
I still
very
got
rare
my
occasions.
13-inch.
I wish I still had my 13-inch, because it's
I still have it.
yeah. Well, you're a smart man. I didn't hang on to mine.
I don't know why. It was the only one I didn't want to throw away because it still works. It's from 1973, I think. One of those things. You like, yeah, let's keep it. It's not doing nothing.
Wendy says her kids are still 6 inches away from a 45-inch screen.
Yeah, kids like to go in front of the screen, even though I go mad about it.
I don't know if like it was true, but I read a while back that like kids, like the focal distance of kids' eyes is just different, and so like they have to they sit closer because like the focal distance that they have is like better when they sit closer, rather than if they're too far away they can't see as well.
It could probably, since that their eyes are a bit smaller, the focal distances could be smaller.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But I'm not eye doctor, so don't take me on that.
I'm not a doctor, but do take my advice.
Well, I guess suppose you tune your LCD screen to the right frequencies, you could probably get a suntan while doing it. There's
I'll be down
Colin.
with that.
Well, you don't really need to tune things. You just need to open something bright, aka white, and you get a suntan right away.
Oh, so Discord in light mode.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, that might work. So Colin, welcome. I wasn't sure if you were a different Colin or a troll. Well, I mean, he might be a troll, but I mean, different Colin. Oh, can you hear me? Did he freeze? He's good. All right, he gave me the thumbs up.
He's not ready yet.
Uh-oh. Is his mic facing the right direction this time?
There is that. It's the little things.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can. You sound great.
I was trying to do the audio and the window was on the other screen. I didn't notice.
It happens.
It's all right. You're here now.
Oh boy.
Have you been testing out any distributions lately, or at least that you want to share with the class, rather?
No, I've been bash scripting, believe it or not.
Oh, what have you been bash scripting?
Well, I was watching The Real Geek, and he has some real thought-provoking videos. I felt like I was in a classroom actually, and every time I set up a new system on here, or I reinstall Linux, I've got to I have to set my links and, delete the home folders and all this stuff. So I thought I would put all that in a bash script. So, and I actually manipulated one from Esnix and did that. And then the Real Geek brought out another video and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start from scratch and make it my own. And I was on there all day yesterday. I was just intrigued by how you can do all these things with a menu, and you can just select a number and, all this magic happens in the background. It's just very rewarding, actually. So I've been doing that. It's good. Loving it.
Are you putting any of your stuff on GitHub for other people to see?
No, I haven't got GitHub.
Okay.
I haven't got a
GitLab? SourceForge?
No, I haven't got GitLab. No, I haven't got any of that.
At GitHub.
Sitting on my computer.
Oh, so just Colin Hub.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I recommend having GitHub because then you can just git clone and quickly get it on any computer you need.
Well, how much does GitHub cost you? Is it free or
It's free.
Cost you
Free.
money?
Free.
Is it really? GitHub? It's
Yeah.
free, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
You see, because one thing I noticed was I was trying to, I got some themes and all that, and I thought when I install the system, I've got a separate hard drive, so I can just copy things from that. But if I'm on another system and I'm trying something out, then I have to somehow get my themes and all that, if I want them, and just run, press number 6 or whatever it is, and it downloads it. So I set it up on Google Drive, so I couldn't get them from my home network because FTP and all this stuff is an absolute nonsense. It needs to ask for some sort of port number, and I'm not good at that stuff, and I got no idea what I was doing. I just thought, put on Google Drive, and even that was a headache because I had to figure out how to download from Google Drive. But hey, maybe GitHub's a good idea. Maybe I should do that. I don't know.
Well, also it's a good way to back up your stuff too. Like I have things that I've done, like I put together an OpenSUSE theme to my liking, and I put that all on GitHub so that I can put it on the Plasma store or the KDE store, whatever it's called, so anybody can install it now. But you have to have it on GitHub anyway. But I did it just as a backup, so I didn't lose it. So
that sounds good. Oh, maybe I might try that.
And then I don't know what desktop you use, but if you use Plasma, there's actually a Plasma integration, so it's literally just drag and drop, and you have to know all the GitHub commands. So I think that might be for other, maybe for GNOME too. I don't know.
Person. He doesn't use KDE.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm a GNOME Cinnamon guy. I'm pretty much between those two, and Budgie sort of a little bit to my liking as well. But yeah, KDE. It's a beautiful looking desktop, but after a while, it just gets on my nerves for some reason. I can't figure out why, but it's just one of those things. It doesn't have a lot of, I don't know. I think when you first start Linux, if you're within, and even if you don't know what GTK is and Qt is, if you start off with GTK, you'll probably end up going back there all the time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take on it too. I tend to have, there are so few Qt based applications or Qt based applications, honestly, when I think about it, because for a while I thought, that's one of the downfalls of GNOME, because there's no easy way to control, like in Plasma, you can set what GTK apps are going to look like, right? And it's actually a really nice system for controlling. It's built right in, and because there are so many GTK based applications, it's actually really important that they have it. But the opposite is not so true. I mean, there really aren't, when I sit here and think about it, unless it's a KDE specific application, I mean, there are some, but for the most part, I can't think of just like, especially common everyday applications that people use, like web browsers and chat clients, and I'm just trying to think of like,
well,
VirtualBox.
VirtualBox was definitely one of those few standouts, right?
Yeah, I use KDE Live, Eric, and that's Qt, isn't it? Yeah, of course.
But they, depending on how you install it though, they do. Yeah, so it's got all of that stuff packaged in. If you do a Flatpak or you do app image, it's got all of the stuff sort of packaged in the theming and everything anyway. Now they
And
in
that-
particular do a good job of that. Some
Yeah.
other projects don't, but yeah, I don't run into it very, and Big Pod's right. VirtualBox is probably the one that I see the most often.
So VirtualBox is Qt, is it? Are you saying?
It is.
Is
Yeah.
it real? I didn't even know that, to be honest.
Yep.
Wow.
And the way that you would know that is because it wouldn't fit in with the theming on a GTK based desktop environment. Unless
I
you're
don't
using
really-
something like Cavantum, something like that. And Cavantum is
Right.
the way that I've just dealt with that in the past, is you just install Cavantum, pick the closest theme. And Cavantum has mostly all the common themes, Arc and Adwaita and like all the common ones that you would normally use. And they're usually close enough. And there's Yaru if you're using Ubuntu. And anyway, in practice, it's never as big an issue as I thought it would be. So Colin, I think your assumption of if you started with GTK or you use GTK, you would probably stick with it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm so used to all the applications that come with GTK, and then it feels a little bit foreign when you go to KDE Plasma. Some of the applications, some you're already familiar with, but look, I didn't even know. Look, VirtualBox looks fine to me in a GTK environment, but then again, I'm not fussy with things like that. I don't notice
Yeah,
every little
same.
small detail. It doesn't, as long as it does what I want it to do. To a certain extent, I don't really care what it looks like. As long as it doesn't look like it's from 1965 or something like that, then it's all good for me.
For me, I think the bigger problem is usually the font and text rendering. If it'll fit in and pick up, because I tend to have to increase my font size,
Right.
which is another reason that I like GTK, because it just seems like that stuff scales better and that my fonts tend to look better. I can't explain why. I don't know. I don't have the understanding of how the font rendering systems are different between Qt and GTK, between Plasma and GNOME, for example. All I know is that on GNOME or Budgie or any of those systems, like the fonts just are cleaner, they're easier for me to see and read, and they're also easier to adjust.
Right.
So
I've never adjusted fonts, to be honest.
yeah, I hadn't either. My eyes were perfect until about 5 years ago. Now they're not.
Maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's why I can't see things properly. I should be adjusting fonts.
I played with fonts quite a bit when I had 1440 by 900 screen on a laptop. I kept playing with them, bigger or smaller, to try and maximize my screen size. But after I flipped to a 1080p screen, I haven't actually messed with it on a 14-inch display. Although I have had moments recently where at night my eyes get tired and I have to look away and look back at the screen a few times to it's like my autofocus is getting a little bit sloppy. And so I think what would be nice, how they have those they adjust the screen brightness or the screen the redshift, the redshift the desktop tool, so at night it's easier on the eye, it's get rid of the blues or whatever. I think they need to have that except with font scaling for old people. So when you get so at night when you get a little tired, it starts to scale the fonts a little bit bigger as it redshifts. I'll put in a feature request.
That's sort of like if you apply that to the dark versus light theming, presumably dark theming is more appropriate at night. Although for me, I've made the switch completely where if anything isn't dark, white text on a black background, the contrast is difficult for me to read, and it actually does really hurt my eyes. Like I joke around, but Zoom drives me crazy because the chat, the chat and the participant windows are still stark white, even though the rest of the window is dark. And why they haven't changed that, I have no idea. But and when things now don't have a dark mode, it's disappointing. But fortunately, so many things do have it. But yeah, that to me makes reading much easier. The contrast of a dark background and light text. And then for me, at least under GNOME, I have the accessibility menu up in the toolbar, and I can go in and switch on large text, which is nice because and then it scales across everything. Like just everything gets about 25% larger. So when my eyes are tired, it's just like you're saying, you hit large text and it all just gets bigger, which is great.
Or maybe it's just time for me to shut it off and go to bed. I think that's actually been my solution. That means I can't hang with the young folk. I gotta hang it up. So
That's it.
Yep.
Call it a night.
yeah, it was Thursday night. I was playing Minecraft with the kids. It kind of got a little bit late, and the Bedrock edition. So I can install the Flatpak to run the Bedrock editions, like whatever they play on the Android. I guess it works in Linux mostly well. It's not crashy or anything. It's just something that the skins don't always translate. I don't know. But anyway, I just noticed that like after a while, like my eyes kind of start to like do this side to side number. Like it's like the focusing is fighting between them. And so as soon as that happens, I'm like, well, time for bed, kids. But it's only 8:30. Time for bed.
Does this include the Flintstones? This game is from Bedrock. Does this include the Flintstones or something?
No, but it should. That'd be a great addition to the Minecraft. Is Flintstones? If you could be I'd be Dino. Because Dino's my favorite.
Dino. Look, you asked me if I was working on a video. I'm working on a follow-up video from Ubuntu because I missed out all the system trays and that because I was making a goose of myself looking at some of those things. So I'm making a follow-up video on that just to show some things, you just can't find when you look at release notes. And I don't know, they seem to be simple, but when you're making a video, sometimes it's not.
This is true.
So that's
like when they say follow these 4 simple directions, and they really missed steps 3 through 13. Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, it's all fun.
I take a lot of notes on things when when I'm trying something new. I always take a lot of notes because I have a hard time remembering what I just did. So I'll write everything down now, and this way I can refer back when I do try it again.
Yeah, so I have a hard time remembering too. If I write down notes, I actually forget to look at the notes.
Oh. Well, I use this thing called TiddlyWiki. I've been using it for many years now.
I've heard you mention that. TiddlyWiki.
Yeah. Actually, I created an OpenSUSE BreezeDark palette, so now it matches my desktop. It's really quite nice, actually. But anyway, I use that for taking my notes because if I find that I just somehow I miss things, or I just can't remember stuff. And since I always use that for all my notes, everything that I do is always in there. I can always refer back and pull those notes up. So I have notes that are probably 10 years old now. Well, no, 9. I've only been using it 9 years. So 9 years old now that are in that notebook, and it works great. Like no complaints. I'm going to continue to use it. So.
That's good.
So Fedora, we had last week we talked about Fedora 40 a little bit. No, Fedora 34.
Fedora 34.
And it was XFCE. So I think we determined that was the XFCE was an issue. I don't know if anybody else have tried any of the other flavors in here that want to maybe give some feedback on that still. Because it's a...
What was the problem with it?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I tried Cinnamon. I'll always try Cinnamon. I tried Budgie, and I tried Plasma, and I tried Workstation. So I tried those 4. And, there's a certain amount of polish that they put into, like outside of, for Cinnamon in particular, because I like Cinnamon, outside of Mint, they put together the cleanest sort of out of the box experience for Cinnamon, in my opinion. There's, Manjaro does one, but I think it's, there's just so many changes and like weird things and where the dock is. And like they make so many changes that it doesn't really look like Cinnamon to me anymore. so anyway, it's clean out of the box and works very well. Plasma works really well. I mean, the spins are all treated, with the same care and attention as the workstation. So it's a good experience if you like any of those alternative desktops and but want the Fedora base. If you're interested in trying out some of the new changes with Pipewire and they just recently made the switch to ButterFS. They've got X Wayland distributed as a separate package, which is kind of interesting because X Wayland is getting updates, whereas X is really not at this point. So if you wanted to sort of track the changes in X Wayland, you can install that as a separate package and switch over to using it. Whether you value and see the value of running Fedora as a desktop operating system, the one thing that I really do appreciate about them, well, a couple things. One is that they push out new technologies pretty aggressively. So they're usually on the forefront or the vanguard of, they have GNOME 40 out, they've got Pipewire, they've got, Wayland, they've got all these technologies that other distributions have sort of danced around. They're quick to push that out. And of course they are the test bed and that's sort of their purpose. But at the same time, it is, I didn't have any issues running audio. And, to think that they just decided to run Pipewire, I mean, I'm sure there had to be some amount of scrambling and work that went into putting that all together and making it work as well as it does. And it seemed pretty seamless and trouble-free to me. I mean, I don't run Fedora. I'm not a huge fan of DNF and some of the things with package management and needing to add so many repositories. There's a lot of clunky things to me in terms of running that system, but I still respect and appreciate these things that they do. The other thing that they do, which just is, it's nice to me. I don't know, maybe this is just a nitpicky thing, but all of their websites are really well put together. The documentation they produce is just very clear and thorough. Their release notes are, exceptionally well done. They've got, Planet Fedora, which has all the release announcements and all of the sort of coordination of the messaging. It's just really well executed. And so all those things to me make it a worthwhile distribution, but I still don't run it, every day.
So for me, when I last ran Fedora, I did on Plasma, and I thought it was great. I didn't have any issues with it. I installed software that DNF Dragora, actually I liked it. Call me crazy, don't banhammer me, because then I can't run the show. But what I did do, just for fun, just for kicks, I downloaded from the system settings, my OpenSUSE BreezeDark Plasma style and color scheme. And so it looked like I was running OpenSUSE on it until, you actually dig into it. But so yeah, you can make it look however you wanted. And I didn't have any problems with it. I thought DNF was really fast, and it installed packages really fast for me. Like, it was surprisingly, shockingly fast, to the point where I'm like, wow, this is chomping at the heels of Zypper. And, but there you go. I'm not going to give up my Zypper. I still like my Zypper.
I think if you get used to using RPMs, it makes sense to you. I think I've just been in the Debian and Arch worlds for so long that I'm used to Pacman and apt, and Zypper and DNF just kind of, I don't know, they just feel clunky to me. They feel slow, and their options and the way that they handle mirrors, and it's a completely nitpicky. They obviously work, so it's not like I can say, oh, I had problems, or they didn't work. That's not fair, and that's not true. It's just more of my preference. So take that for what you will.
I know when I first started out in Linux, and I started off with Mint, so it was the the apt, And then when I started messing around with Arch Linux and started getting to Pacman, that started confusing me a little bit because, being new and switching around and stuff. But then I went to and I tried that, like I said, I tried Fedora, I tried the DNF thing, and like you said, it's clunky, it's slow. I had issues. I know Jenda had issues, and yeah, I don't know if it was the version of Fedora I downloaded or if it was just the DNF in itself, but it was just a lot of issues with updates and things of that nature, and it was just not working right.
I wonder if it's just like
You can
you had it like you tried on a bad day. Like sometimes mirrors can go down. I wonder if I'm serious. Like it doesn't matter the distribution. I've had distributions where they just had like something happened in their mirror network that kind of just blew a hole in the side of the bucket.
Yeah.
And it just stopped working. Like I've had actually happen. I hit like a tumbleweed when there's an update and not all the updates rolled through all the mirrors right away, and I just happened to hit it at the wrong time one day, and so it just kind of aired out on me. But it didn't take my system down. It just basically kicked me out, and because it couldn't find something or whatever. But yeah, I just wonder if it's like you both kind of happened to hit it like on a bad day. Like I just wonder if it was just a bad day.
It must
Or
have
is
been a lot of bad days.
No,
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, a lot of bad days.
From my
It's a
experience, Fedora seems faster at DNF. It seems faster than before, but it's still not quite as fast as apt.
Well, first of all, I'm not gonna say RPMs are bad because packaging RPMs is definitely easy compared to packaging dibs. That's for sure. RPM spec files are really nice. Problem is, DNF is kinda crap. That is because for main repositories use their so-called mirror manager, which basically DNF contacts the mirror manager server, which then assigns you or gives you the URL to what is for you according to that server your fastest mirror, which is really pretty hit and miss. Sometimes you get really fast mirrors that are really close to you. Sometimes you get one that is on the moon. And what can you do? And it's not really on the moon, it's on the other side of the world. So near calling.
Same thing. Moon,
on the dark
other
side of the moon.
world.
Then
What?
there is an option in the configuration files for DNF to enable what is basically fastest equals true. What you just said, fast equals true, and or fast equals 1, whatever. And what it does, it just gets you the lowest ping server you can get, no matter the download speed, bandwidth, whatever. And ironically, that makes it normally work because it just goes which server has lowest ping for you. That's
So-
what we'll use.
maybe someone can explain to me, not to dig too deep into this, but I think the thing that I never quite understand is that the repository, instead of being one grandiose repository, it seems like every package I want to install, and this goes for OpenSUSE as well, it just seems like everything is its own repository. Like there's just like every time I install something, it's like, oh, adding a new repository, adding, and unless I'm reading that wrong and understanding it wrong.
Well, no. As far as I know, there is for Fedora, there is about 6 repositories. Some of them are all up. Some of them are the main Fedora repositories. Then you have some small stuff that are in other repositories. For example, I believe some stuff for multimedia are in different repository, and then that gets people confused. Why there is so many repositories? Because, for example, on Ubuntu you have 3 repositories or 4, I don't know, something like that. The main one, security, updates, and multiverse. Oh, it's actually there is also universe, but okay, 5th repository.
So with OpenSUSE, there's the main official repository, and then they have a few additional ones. So like, if let's say it's an application that's not part of the official, what they run it against, like maybe some more edge case KDE apps, or maybe have some Python stuff that like the development stuff is in a separate repository. But for the most part, the main repository is pretty pretty robust in what they have in OpenSUSE. But I'll be honest with you, at this point, like if it's specific applications I want, like let's say like LeoCAD or FreeCAD, I'll get the pre-built, Flatpak or Snaps or whatever, because I find that tends to be a better experience for like the larger, more complex applications that are more specific about the libraries they need. So I tend to go with something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with the packaging on the OpenSUSE version, but because of legal reasons, they can't have like for LeoCAD, they can't have the parts, like the Lego parts, because those have some sort of a distribution clause. They can't distribute it with whatever licensing that OpenSUSE has. So if I get the Flatpak, it's bundled in there, and that makes my life a lot easier.
Sounds to me like everybody thinks RPM is.
Oh.
Oh boy. No, I think RPM's great.
Well, I have a question with DNF. DNF is like apt, isn't it? But
Yeah.
what is DNF Dragora? What's that?
It's like Synaptic
the
or-
It's
front-end
kind of
UI.
synaptic.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like a package manager, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like a GUI for a
GUI,
DNF.
it's a GUI for a package manager.
Okay, right. Okay.
It's not necessary to run, but it's not bad. I mean, some people don't like it, but I don't. I like it, but I'm kind of old
It's
school.
not good either, but okay.
I guess I like a lot of things that are not good according to BigPod, and that's all right. That's all
Well,
right.
It's
Different strokes,
interesting.
different
So
folks.
we've kind of arrived at this part of the conversation. One of the things that Nate had put into the ideas for conversation this evening was, if you remember a few years ago, Linus Torvalds had given a talk about why the Linux desktop sucks specifically. And it boiled down mainly to packaging. He had said the packaging and the proposition that you would tell a software developer that they had to package their software in 20 different, formats and for different architectures and different, it was daunting and it's difficult to do. And so, again, this was a few years ago, and the question would be, is that still the truth today? And it's interesting to me to hear Nate say that he actually uses Flatpaks on OpenSUSE, especially on Tumbleweed, which is a rolling release, right? So they're going to have the most up-to-date packages with the Open Build service, which gives you access to a native package, but still in some cases using Flatpak and the unified package management systems or formats makes sense. And I've argued for a long time, at least for the last few years, with snaps and Flatpaks and app images, that the difficulties I used to have with picking a distribution and having to then rely on the repository of that distribution, or having to rely on different repositories that were maybe questionable or weren't kept up to date or things like that. A lot of that has just been alleviated, right? I just don't have those issues anymore. And if anything, every single day, there's more and more packages being deployed to FlatHub and Snapcraft. I mean, it's amazing. It's almost, it used to be, it was surprising if a package was actually, or if an application was on those services. They were usually like a niche kind of thing. And now it's pretty much everything is there. And it's surprising when you find that something isn't there. So, and you look at different distributions like Fedora, for example, leaning heavily on Flatpak for a lot of their core applications, and then Ubuntu Canonical doing the same thing with snaps. And so, if Torvalds, main argument of Linux on the desktop being not a good situation was package management or working through these issues with packaging, are we past that now?
No.
I think yes.
I think you make a good point, because if you like I sort of like to try out Debian every now and then. Debian's one of those ones where all the packages are old, but it's very stable. But you can get the things that you want now up to date by using Flatpaks or app images or Snap on Debian and keep a stable system. So I think that works very well. Or just things that you couldn't get that are now available in those package formats as well is another win situation to be on a stable desktop and have the up-to-date packages that you like. So I think that solved a lot of those problems and all these dependency issue problems, which could be a nightmare sometimes, you know, in Debian.
Well,
So I
and you brought up the idea of running. So if you're on a GTK-based desktop and you want to run a Qt-based application, and a lot of times there would be so many dependencies that you'd have to install that it was as if you were, you know, there might be hundreds of dependencies for a certain application, and it's messy, right? It's messy.
Yeah.
It adds to the weight of the system. It's a lot to maintain. Whereas those package formats, you know, Flatpak and Snap and all of them, they're reusing those different components. So the way that they treat, you know, file redundancy and stuff like that, it's a much better way of managing the software on a system. And at first, so a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was seeing a lot of people say, oh, it's stupid to install a gigabyte's worth of files for one application. And if you look at it that way, then yes, Flatpak is heavy, because maybe if that's the only Flatpak application you're going to run, then okay, I get that.
Bloat,
Yeah.
bloat.
Right, bloat. But I have 30 Flatpaks on my system. And when I install one now, it's tiny. It's just the core application. I have all the frameworks installed. All the prerequisites are already there.
Isn't the bloat mainly just installing the run times and stuff?
Yes.
But once you install that, then the others aren't as bloaty as what the first
Exactly.
install would be. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I thought.
There is a bit more of a problem here, because problem is that even if these packages are available as snaps or Flatpaks or app images, problem is that there are still people, and somewhat influential people, that will still bash against those. And there are many influential people, especially in more blog sphere and forum sphere, where they don't like this transformation of using packages that are quote unquote bloated, that contain all the libraries, everything, because for them everything that you already have is already bloat, even if it's a few megabytes. And if people will be looking at this stuff, there is a percentage that won't want to install these snaps and packages, and this could be a problem still.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it certainly could be, but it comes down to a different way of thinking about software and layers and dependencies and containers. Like if you look at the predominance of container-based infrastructure now, like that is exactly how a container, you know, Docker and stuff like that. That's exactly how those work. Is, you know, you take the little pieces that you need for whatever the system is, you put them together. And that's, you know, and then when one of them needs to be switched out or updated or changed, you just change that one thing, and without having to do the entire system. So
yeah, that is true. But problem is that the people, especially older Linux people, do not want change. That's the thing that they do not want to say. They don't want change. They want everything to stay how it is, how it was. And that brings the problems I mentioned, because those people are very, very influential, very open on the forums, many blogs, so, and in YouTube comments. There's a lot of them in YouTube comments as well.
You are right.
Those
What you're saying.
are problematic because those might have quite an influence on newcomers, and they might think that this is all true, and then what comes out of it? Now, there are also those of us who are mainly who are mainly or somewhat in server space. Those of us are used to Docker, used to containerization. We are used to big images and running those. But those new ones who are quite easily swayed because they do not know themselves what is what yet, those are under the question, and that could be a bit of a problem. But that is how it will develop. Then again, another question is, while Flatpak is okay according to some, then also the whole issue with Snap having proprietary backend and all that comes in, whether you should run Snap, and all of those questions become quite a bit of a problem in the space. And then of course, how secure are those? Because one of the main things they say is that those are secure, and how secure are they on distributions they don't come pre-installed in? For example, snaps aren't by default at all secure on Arch if you do not set up AppArmor correctly, and so on and so on and so on.
Well, I think this theory comes about because a lot of people are probably still using older hardware, and I think they like to do that with Linux. And I think that's what can you say? It's one of those processes that people have got used to, the older Linux users. And look, I love messing about with older hardware with Linux because it just brings old hardware to life, to be honest. And I think people get trapped in that environment and they don't like to see the change because they're probably running a hard drive that's probably not as huge that can handle flat packs and sizes and all that. So,
but it's having. So the problem is it's this all or nothing black and white approach that a lot of people have, where instead of saying like when I talked about Fedora, you know, and I'm not trying to say that I'm doing it the right way and they're doing it the wrong way. I'm just saying that being able to articulate the fact that it may not work for you in every possible situation, but you know, I think this is the same group of people or the same type of person that would complain that a certain desktop environment uses 100 megabytes more memory than another one. And you just think, you know, the point of diminishing returns, where if I have a system with 16 gigs of memory, why do I care if it's an extra 100, 200 megabytes of RAM being taken up by my system? And I know there's purists that will just say, well, it's wasteful. You know, why would you allow a system to be heavier or more bloated than it should be? And I get that. And that's, but again, you have a choice. And the other thing is, speaking of choice, one of the things that I haven't appreciated about this direction that Ubuntu's taking is where they're replacing Debian packages with snaps. So like Chromium, for example, is now a snap package. Their software center is now a snap package. And they're going through and taking core pieces of software. And even though I understand why they're doing it, and I even agree with why they're doing it, I don't have the choice anymore. They've stopped building the Chromium package. I can't get it.
But
and so,
that is a bit more of a nuanced question. Why they did it? It's not just because they want to convert us to snaps. It's because of the work that has had to be done to get every version of Chromium packaged for 3 or 4 releases. And
it makes sense.
I get that. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And again, I understand that, but I still want the choice. And again, for me, it was because, and maybe it's better now, but snaps have always looked different, visibly different. The cursor's different. The font is rendered differently. Everything looks different in a snap package, and not all of them, but last time I tried Chromium as a snap, it visibly looked different than the rest of my system. And that is a very minor thing to some people.
That is getting solved more and more and more and more.
You know, for what it's worth, I'm actually using the Snap Chromium on OpenSUSE, even though I have the OpenSUSE option. But because the Snap has all the different like little multimedia things just bundled in it, I just tend to use that, and it makes it really easy for me, and I don't have to really worry about it. And I honestly, I don't have any performance issues or visual issues or anything with the snaps in OpenSUSE.
Yeah.
In
Have
fact,
they fixed the cursor?
there's no issue. I just checked.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, there's no issue.
it's probably because it's a newer version. Since it is developed by Canonical, it is probably using all the latest features of Snap. So yeah, probably has everything that Snaps have to offer, including teaming support and all that stuff.
So
It-
Got it.
I'm gonna offer some information here about the adoption of these things, and I'm sure all of us have been around in Linux for various amounts of time. Me, far too long, and I look at I look at people that I've known in the professional world who have come over to Linux or are learning Linux stuff. They're largely here because they want to run Kubernetes, they want to run Docker, they want to run containerized things. So when they go in and they find out, hey, I can get my apps as containers too, they're all about it. This old guard of people, and I consider myself part of that in a way, although I'm a little more adaptable, but like the older people who don't want to change things, they're irrelevant at this point. They're getting replaced by these people. They're not, sure, they have a lot of knowledge. I'm not discounting that, but if they don't get with like the new things, then they're not useful anymore. Because it turns out, yeah, writing init scripts, not that useful. Everyone's using systemd now. Not focusing on containers, doing everything in big VMs, yeah, not that useful anymore. Like, sure, you can use VMs, you can, and they still have their place. All these things still have their place, but not adopting new things because, get off my lawn is kind of silly and holds back not just the community, but holds back them. Thankfully, there are more and more people that are coming along that are like, hey, I want new things, and they're going to move the ball forward. I don't think there's really that much of an issue of the older, gray beards or whatever who don't want to change their ways. Fine, let them not change their ways. The rest of it's changing anyway without them.
Yeah, and also there's distribution for them anyway too. So it's not like those that don't want to change, there is a place
Yeah.
for them. And so there's nothing really stopping Linux development really. I mean, it's just, a lot of these, like Fedora does a great job. They're kind of on the leading edge of testing new technologies or testing different methods for doing things, trying new technologies very quickly. And I think that's something that makes Fedora, in my opinion, a great distribution for forward-leaning, new technology, distribution. Now, that's not the distribution that's necessarily for me all the time, and but I do use a rolling distribution, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, because it's just the right amount of rolling for me, where I can still use my hardware, and also it's a little bit more inclusive of other, because the automated build system. They build it for lots of different hardware automatically, and so I have a lot of choice there in that regard. So it fits me the best, but for me, that's my, I'm kind of an edge case in many ways because I like to try other esoteric bits of hardware. But now there are some people where that doesn't fit their workflow at all. They need something more customizable. I think Vince, I think you're primarily Arch. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So Arch fits his needs because you have a specific need, I'm sure, or a specific reason for why you like to use Arch. It tickles certain nerdy nerve endings that you have.
I like to bleed.
He likes to, you like to hurt yourself, and that's cool because everyone has their thing, and I think that that's the one good thing about Linux is that the personalization that it does provide you, the user, basically across the board. If it doesn't work for you, you can just say next and go on to the next thing. It's nothing personal. It's just what works best for you. So, and that's actually really what I appreciate about it. People who don't like snaps, don't use them. I don't think it's a bad technology. Just don't use them. Say, top of the morning to you, and I'm off. That's it. Don't use them. But for me, they work in many ways because guys like Martin Wimpress, he's put together a snap of OBS that's got all the bells and whistles, wound right into it, and I can just use it, and I don't have to think about setting it up. I don't have to do any work. He took away all the technical liability, and but I am relying on his talents, from this point forward, and that may not work for somebody else who, like for whatever reason.
Yep.
And then, that's one of the, that's really the to me the huge thing. What makes Linux great? What makes the whole open source ecosystem, wonderful. You can pick and choose the tools that work best for you, and go from there. Like for me, Elementary is probably one of the most polished distributions, arguably, I should say, one of the most polished distributions out there, but it's just polished absolutely the wrong way for me. It doesn't fit my needs at all. But I will not say that it's a bad project or isn't well polished, because that would be a complete and utter, lie, because it is, And so I think that's what I really appreciate.
Yep,
And I don't
that
want-
is the beauty of Linux is
Yeah.
choice.
It is.
Yeah, well, I jumped off of Arch because I was having problems with Blender, and I've gone from Blender back to KDN Live at the moment. But because Arch was updating and Blender was being updated all the time, and things were going wrong every now and then. But I'm on Pop OS and I'm using the Flatpak. Same thing. So Flatpak's getting updated all the time as well. So I'm still in the same boat. I think you can drop it back down. I think I'm not sure. I didn't go into that, but yeah, it doesn't make any difference actually when you're running Flatpaks and that. But so I can say, my favorite is App Images. Actually, I like App Images. I think they're the best ones because they're not intrusive to the system. They're not installed on the system. You just put them there and they run. So I quite like that idea. Yeah.
I think with all the criticisms we can make of package management, right? Let's not forget what the alternative could be. And I think most of us, have come from Windows backgrounds, and having to crawl all over the internet to find what you need and download, executables that may or may not be legit. But whereas we are very lucky to have these centralized repositories where we can just download the software that we need. And yeah, sometimes we don't find what we need. But to know that the majority of these things are probably going to be vetted, or at least have some eyes looking at it, so that there's some safety in using the repositories. I think that's still a marvelous thing. I kind of think though that it almost seems like there's an opportunity missed, that there isn't some sort of a centralized repository that other distros could just draw from. I mean, Ubuntu is essentially one of those ones where there are a lot of distributions that are based off it and used there as repositories. But it kind of strikes me as though there wasn't a way that maintainers could come together and have just things packaged centrally, and therefore they wouldn't have to build it themselves, and contribute that way and be able to draw from those repositories that way. It seems to me that could have been a solution to the problem, but that might be a sort of a pie in the sky type of idea that was never going to happen. I don't know. That's just me.
No, I agree. And I think for a long time, because you had to rely so much on the base repository, you didn't have those options, right? Maybe, the way that you would extend, and that's what you're saying with having access to Flatpaks. Now you see Elementary, you see a lot of different distributions adopting Flatpaks as a way to distribute their core packages, right, that they're building on top of an Ubuntu base or a Debian base or an Arch base or an OpenSUSE base or whatever, because it's easier for them to package as a Flatpak and to manage that software. And I think that's pretty amazing. But you're right. I mean, for the longest time, that was yet another Debian repository that had to be into the hooked in. And I made a video, well over a year ago on this topic, basically just saying like Flatpaks changed the way I've used Linux, because it just unhitched that whole question about which distribution do I have to run. Like it just doesn't matter anymore for most things. As long as it becomes more about distributions are more of a hardware thing. Now, does your distribution support your particular PC or laptop or device better than maybe another one does? Because something like Pop OS that's built specifically for one GPU versus another has all of the hybrid switching built right in. That's a really great experience. So someone doesn't have to mess around with any of that. They can just install Pop, and Pop Shop has Flatpak built right in. So if it's not in their repository, then it's on FlatHub, and
Yep.
there you go.
Mhm.
I would say,
Exactly.
if you remember, Eric, some time ago, you also did a video on App Image Launcher. That
Right.
one changed my life because it basically made app images feel like first-class citizens on my desktop because you can very easily add and remove them. And there's a really, I cannot remember the YouTuber, but there was some YouTuber, this is some time ago, that they actually used App Image as their primary workflow because they could then determine, they could basically pick and choose whatever versions they wanted and very easily transpose them to other desktops by syncing them. It was like using SyncThing or maybe Google Drive, or I don't know what it was, Dropbox. And so it was their method of using like a system, like a application repository, was basically using App Images. And I don't remember if they used App Image Launcher or not, but I thought it was a very interesting idea, and I saw the merits in it because you could essentially take your desktop application stack, put it on a USB drive, and just walk over to another computer, sneaker net it over into another computer and just use it. And that is also kind of a compelling idea too. And so again, what I really like is that all these different options for managing software can be tailored really to what you like to do. To me, it's a little, it's an odd way of doing it, but I can see the merits in it.
Well, it comes back to the more modern mentality of DevOps and like containerized systems. And if you can, again, your core distribution is that hardware, the support, it's your kernel, it's your bootloader, it's all of the sort of, low level system applications, your desktop environment, stuff like that. And then your more userland or user facing applications would be some sort of universal package format app image. I think it was maybe Schickel that was doing, or Chicken. I can't remember what we were calling him at that time. But I think he was trying to do that. And there is also a distribution, at least one I know, that was using App Image as their back end for all of their packages. I can't remember what it was at this point, but
something on N.
it's not Nitrix, was it?
Maybe.
I can't remember if it was Nitrix or not. Anyway. So, I think there's a lot of advantages. And again, it goes back to that mentality of the containerized approach where that you're, the all the frameworks and the sort of core requirements.
Nitrux.
Yeah, Nitrix.
Nitrix. Yeah, that uses all app
Yeah.
images, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just a different way of thinking about it. You can still run servers, the way that they've been run for decades, or the more common way nowadays, and the way that everybody's being taught or thinking about it, is containerized systems, and being able to scale vertically and horizontally, and just being able to just drop in these pieces and build out systems with this little pieces, and I think that's where everything's going to go. And we're already seeing that. So, speaking of old holdout technologies, and I know we're jumping ahead a little bit in the notes here, but something that's near and dear to my heart, because I had a product that only ran on Internet Explorer. Microsoft is finally going to kill Internet Explorer next year.
Finally.
That saddens me so much.
Yep.
Because
Saddens you?
There's
Oh,
gonna
man.
be a lot of issues with that. I'll tell you that. Especially
There's
Well,
gonna be a
you know,
lot of work for those who port packages to.
I'm not even just talking about
website
the
to
Linux,
new
the
vendors.
Linux sphere here. I'm talking about because I do IT work for Bank of America, and I would say 90%.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 75%. Let's say 75% of the programs that we use, the programs the bank uses, rely on Internet Explorer. They don't.
Why?
When you click on something, they pull right up into Internet Explorer because that's the only program that'll run it. It's the way they're older programs and it's the way they're made. Yada, yada,
They
yada.
probably use.
So they're
old
gonna have
ASP.
to
.NET framework.
Yeah,
Old
so,
ASP.NET, yeah.
web forms.
yeah. But
and
my point being
that
is
was
here is that that's going to be, once they get rid of that, it's going to be like when they got rid of Flash Player. There were still some things in the BankUs that you'd require Flash Player.
Yeah.
So now they're using this other program that
Emulates
imitates
it.
Flash Player, but it's not the same thing, without the bugs and malware and viruses and all that happy crappy.
Yeah, Jason, I have the same. I'm gonna have the same issue at work because
Yep.
I still use IE because I use a lot of government sites, and a lot of government sites are IE only.
Mhm. Yep. So now with this whole Chromium stuff going on here, with the Edge and Chrome, obviously, yada yada yada. That's going to be probably what they're going to be having to switch to is because they've already started to push and test Edge at work, because of the probably because of the Internet Explorer death thing, and the bank is slow. I'm sorry, they're behind the times when it comes to upgrading their stuff. We're still upgrading from a lot of systems from Windows 7 to Windows 10, because Windows 7's end of life was ended a while ago. But yeah, it's gonna be a major issue.
Well, I heard banks were still using
Businesses
XP,
wise.
some of them. So maybe
I don't know
what
if Bank America doesn't use XP. It's Windows 7. They do run. They have a lot of Unix systems and they have a lot of Linux-based stuff too. I run into a few Linux troubleshooting tickets because of server-side stuff. I couldn't do anything with it, so I don't have the permissions. And I wouldn't mess with the bank servers anyway. Nope, above my pay grade. But yeah, it's gonna be a mess. That's all I want to say about the whole end of life of Internet Explorer.
I can
I'm
see
glad
it
it's
now.
gone. I hate that stupid thing. It's gonna be a mess.
It'll be Internet Explorer extended version.
Right, exactly.
Give us the money.
How many
It's gonna be the
companies are
Internet
still
Exploder. It's what's gonna happen. It's gonna blow up.
well, how many companies are still running XP because they paid, to do
Yeah.
so? And that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to look at millions of dollars worth of software development costs versus whatever Microsoft will charge them to keep supporting it.
And it's whether or not those particular programs because they're they're older programs, whether or not the people that developed those programs are going to be willing to do the extra work to get them off Internet Explorer.
You just know there's going to be ugly hacks, like some kind of weird virtualized systems that'll like open things and then like port it out. It's going to be
So
all I gotta say is going to keep me in a job.
the current
That's true.
Microsoft Edge does have an IE mode in Windows.
Is that where
it
it
can
crashes?
use to, yeah, kind of. It's where it can use to emulate, the IE like Trident, all that stuff like that.
I hate those emulators because they
And so they do have the IE mode there. This new like death thing only applies to like newer versions of Windows 10. Things like the long-term servicing branch, those are still going to maintain Windows 11, IE 11 for quite a while. Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 will still have IE 11 as well. So it's not, the people who are paying for the extended service contract for Windows 7 are in fact still getting Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
Because it's still going to, live on as far as that goes. And then Windows 8.1 is still technically supported. So as long as Windows 8.1 is around, then you still have IE 11 around for that. And however long the long-term servicing channel of Windows 10, you still have IE 11 in that. So it's not like it's suddenly gone. It's just like, hey, somewhere along the line, it will finally die, just like XP almost has, just it's not
It's
nearly
there
as
somewhere.
not nearly as like sudden and doom and gloom as people
I
might
got an
think.
I got an XP machine upstairs and a 98.
Goro,
That's good,
Throw
though.
them away.
Goro Dono in chat saying, well, it's the bank's fault. And, would you like to use a bank which uses obsolete software? Well, healthcare, banking, and a lot of financial services, not just public facing banking. There are a lot of industries that are using very old technology, and it hasn't gone away yet. There's still demand for COBOL programmers, and like we're talking, systems that, everyone thought mainframes were dead, and all of a sudden, the AS400s are still running.
I guarantee, like 90% of the restaurants that you're going to, they're not on Windows 10. They're still on Windows 7.
Like you
Right.
mean that I can't run my financial institution mainframe with JavaScript, like all the common stuff now? I can't have an Electron app that runs on my mainframe.
It's
I think we should go
insane.
back to the
I know.
IBM 3270 terminal.
No.
When I had my government job, one of my main tasks was updating medical information in a 3270 terminal program. And the one thing I do have to say about 3270 is it's way faster than web technology. I could so much easier go through and punch in information very rapidly on that, and like you don't get the little wait spinning wheel that you get on a web page. So I don't know. I kind of think that, I mean, that was built in 1971 initially, so
Well-
it can't be. It's better. It's better than web technology, I think, as far as efficiency. And
I wouldn't say
requires-
so.
No band. Okay, the bandwidth required for it is almost zero, basically, because it was done, during during pre-dial-up days, basically, and does.
Well,
I mean, it's not
So
graphical
then it's-
at all, but it's
so
great.
then it's two things.
True.
Two things, right? One is
Welcome, Joe.
the never-ending need to develop new things or new versions of the same things, because that's just how software development works to some extent, right? Like the idea that how much are you changing whenever you write that new version of the same system, right? Especially for something that's
Yeah.
essentially replacing, like, financial systems, healthcare systems. A lot of it is literally a one-to-one replacement, just in some new language, some new technology, some new, whatever it is, whatever the hot new one is at the time that they start writing it, which will probably be halfway obsolete before they get it done anyway.
Not
know-
really, because most languages nowadays, if you look at top languages, they're pretty old languages. Python, C#, Java, C++, C. Those are all 20 plus old languages.
I
There
think
is-
more what he's talking about are frameworks and libraries, not
frameworks.
so
Yeah,
much.
that's what I mean. It's not, yeah.
what framework are, yes, they're getting updated, but you should be able to update a framework really easily.
Well,
It's-
anyway, my point is, so half of it, I think, is developing new systems is essentially just a way to continue to push software development forward, not always in the best interest of actually accomplishing the
Right.
things that are set, forth. Go ahead. I think that's
I
the point
think-
I was going to make. Go ahead.
I think Internet Explorer is gonna have a long, slow, painful death, just like Flash Player.
Yep. It's going to be years. I mean, they're going to say they're killing it, but it's going to be years and years and years before it's fully gone, because there's
think
too many
so.
systems where it's integrated as the default method of accessing some web applications and things of that nature, that it's not going to just be like click done. It's going to be years, because they have to give developers a chance to actually update their software to where it gets off Internet Explorer dependencies, to get onto like Chromium and Chrome and all that good stuff.
Well, and Adam, I think, did a great job of explaining how even for systems that are still commercially supported, I mean, even without any like long-term support option, there's still going to be years of Internet Explorer.
Yep.
Which is a way that these companies can continue to run these systems, and they're not going to develop a brand new 100% drop-in replacement for these systems. It's going to be some, three-headed monster that is using some kind of, old bridge. Trust me,
Yep.
it's not going to be pretty.
Oh, I know it. I've seen what they're doing with some of the stuff at the bank already. Just as an example, where I work, where they've been trying to integrate, like Flash, for example. When that went away, they still had some programs that were old programs that are dependent on Flash, so they had to do this emulator thing. And we get tickets upon tickets upon tickets saying this thing is not working, it's airing out, whatever. And I'm like, well, good thing it's not my my job to fix that. I sent it up to another group, and
Right.
but it's still though it's.
Well, hey,
It-
all of our HR stuff was Flash based. Every like training video, all of that stuff was written in Flash, and somebody would have to go back and redo it in
HTML5, whatever it is.
something, right?
Well, is
So-
Flash dead yet? Is Flash dead yet, or is it not?
It's dead
there's ways to emulate it.
It's zombie, not that
There's,
zombie.
yeah, there's ways to emulate it.
It's not a thing you can go like you can't go to. I don't know who owns it now because it used to be is that Adobe now that owns that Flash thing or did? You can't go like download the Flash player anymore because that
Right.
obviously it's gone as far as that aspect goes. But in the real world, it's still there. It's still dependencies on like Eric was saying on certain training videos and websites that run certain web-based applications where it has to render the video or whatever. It's a pain in the butt. Let's just say I'm not looking forward to this Internet Explorer death. I wasn't looking forward to the Windows 7 death either because there's so many people, or not people, but systems rather, that the bank uses that, like the teller systems. They had to, because of Windows 7, they were integrated to Windows 7, and with Windows 10, they had to redo the tellering systems to be compatible fully with Windows 10, and then that had to be, the way they do it is they have to test it and they have to ship that out, and then they have to, it breaks, and then in the test site, and the bank doesn't release anything quickly. That's what I'm saying. They have to go through and make sure it all works with the 50,000 different systems that it has to interact with.
So I was personally bothered by the killing of Flash. People say, "Oh, Flash is terrible," but I love Flash. Like that was the introduction to online entertainment for me. Anybody here remember Homestar Runner?
Oh yeah.
Was it?
Homestar Runner.
What'd you say? Yes. Yep.
All right.
I miss
so
Homestar Runner.
You shouldn't have to miss it. You can still go to it. In fact, because of Ruffle.us, you can actually see all the cartoons. They're all available now again because that Flash emulator is a real thing. So it's still just as funny today as it was in 2003. Yeah, it's great.
The disappointing. So they converted them all to YouTube videos, but the disappointing part, the fun part about Flash was there were Easter eggs in all of the Homestar Runner videos.
But
you'd have to figure out where to click, and then there'd be a little extra scene.
Because this Ruffle project though, all that is back. You can actually the Easter eggs are there. All the obnoxiousness is there in its full glory as it was back in 2003. So I
should clarify. I miss like weekly strong bad emails.
Right. Email. Ooh, email.
Last time I had to use Flash, I basically almost threw my laptop out of the Windows. So I'm pretty happy.
That's a fair reaction to using software.
Yeah, that seems a little bit disproportionate, but okay.
Well, it was infuriating me to the level I just can't really describe, because it basically amounted to everybody in my class email me, why doesn't that work? You know how to fix it. And I was having the same problems.
The problem I had with Flash is the problem I have with a lot of technologies is that they're built to solve a certain challenge or work very well in a particular setting, let's say. And then of course someone has to come along and bastardize it and make it do something that it was never really intended to do. Like Flash as an entire website is an awful idea. It was an awful idea when they started doing it. It's an awful idea now. It was never a good idea. And I still find websites that are Flash based, and I think that just tells you how old that website is. But it made using those things almost impossible because you had to play with the web. It's not a game. Like, it's a website. It's not a game. Anyway, so a lot of technologies end up becoming that because people, here's a great example. Those new message system, the ability to do push messages from a browser. Awful idea, right? Because who would ever think that allowing a website to send you a push message through a browser was a good idea? Maybe if it was like your YouTube, so that's where you see it, right? Twitter, YouTube, like, social media.
I block all that
like
garbage.
So do I.
I know, but let's say there was a situation where that was useful thing, and there was like a monitoring website where you wanted it to send those push messages to you, great, it's perfect for that. But guess what? Every sleazy marketer who wants their web project to be in your face every time you go to their website, allow our messages, allow our, people just take technology and they do dumb things with it. So
That's true. I guess we weren't ready for Flash is the problem, and that's what I'm hearing, or push notifications, whichever.
We as a species have not evolved to be
Far enough.
deserving of Flash.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Flash wasn't ready for Flash. That be clear.
Flash made Homestar Runner possible. That's all I know.
Yep. And I think,
And for that, it served its purpose.
Mhm.
right.
There was some,
But-
yes, there was a lot of good things like Homestar Runner, that concept that Flash was great for. But overall, I don't really miss Flash.
I
all
don't
that
think
much.
I don't think I'd be a complete human if I had never seen All Your Base or Belong to Us. Just straight
See,
Yep.
exactly.
You're the man now, dog. If
I
Lions,
never
Never
saw
saw
that.
any of that.
yep.
So
If
I'm
that
not-
website didn't exist, I don't know what I would have done with myself in that time.
I don't know
period,
how I would have got through college.
honestly.
So, and that was when did the Homestar come out?
2002,
2003.
2000s?
yeah, early 2000s. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, 'cause
18.
so essentially it made possible like low bandwidth, like high quality entertainment because of the way it rendered the video on the screen. It was cartoony, so it was low. Didn't require a lot of color data, but it made for
The big-
really enjoyable content.
The big thing about Flash that made it so efficient is most of the stuff in there was vectorized rather than rasterized.
Right.
So instead of like just streaming an animation similar to something you would see on a YouTube video, right, which is just a video being streamed to you, it streamed the vector data and then your computer put together that data
Yeah.
into the cartoon. So it took the load off the network and put it on your machine. If you had kind of a slow machine, you might have seen like, lagging or slower animations than someone with a better machine, and that's largely why. And so, yeah, back then when the vast majority were on dial-up, and
Right.
a
Oh,
growing
wow.
number were on DSL and cable, like that was important, right? You needed to be able to transfer that whole cartoon to the person's machine without taking minutes or hours to download.
To download.
Yeah, that's a great point, because now we're sort of coming back around with SVG and different types of vectorized formats for things, which scale infinitely and look great at any size and are minuscule. Yeah.
Yeah, but not that's not even nearly as important these days as it would have been back then, because
No.
bandwidth is cheap comparatively, right? Like
Right.
I have I have a gigabit down. Like that's orders and orders of magnitude more than I would have had back then, right?
That's like
So-
all the Homestar Runner cartoons instantly.
Yeah, like all at
Well-
once. Yeah, exactly.
Reason why Flash was this fast and why it was in vectorized data is because at the start it was meant to be just a way for programmers themselves to do the animations, whether the page animations or whatever, which at the time and mostly now is all done by front end people. So they wanted to bring the animation and stuff like that, which is mostly done through CSS or through some kind of front end framework. They wanted to bring it into the backend, and so backend developers could do it. That was the point of Flash, and we know where it brought us.
Brought us to Homestar.
Yeah. So it was worth it.
Yeah, Homestar actually started in 1996.
Oh,
and
really?
It was the first Flash version videos and stuff that came out in 2000.
Sweet.
I did a lot of work in Flash version 5 back in the early 2000s, and took too much time out of my day to learn ActionScript and such to mess about with Flash. Way too familiar with that technology, and it's all that time and effort that I spent, and what is it worth now, right? That's just
Well,
the nature
you
of
keep that
computing.
you keep that knowledge,
Well,
and then in
reality-
20
Yeah,
years, in 20 years, you'll be the
Yeah.
COBOL programmer that they need to fix that Flash
Yeah,
system.
gotta
You bet-
gotta
you
fix
watch
that
and see.
Flash website. Gotta keep
That's
Space
right.
Jam going.
Welcome to front-end programming, where every other week you have a new framework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
suppose.
front-end programming at its finest. Every other week you have a new way of doing the front end, even though it's basically the same, basically a rehash of what was made. You just want to make a new one, whether it be mostly JavaScript, of course, is led by JavaScript people. So you have Vue, you have React, you have Angular, which are basically all three the same thing, just a bit differently made.
I've never really been in the big on the programming stuff, so it's too boring.
It's all the
for
same,
me.
really. It's just implementation details.
Well, Nate, can you believe it? It's
Oh, look at that time! It is
Yeah.
Time for us
21:56
to
by
go
my
another
clock.
hour.
I don't think so. Some of us need
I
our beauty
agree.
sleep. Not that it helps. So that means,
But Sunday's tomorrow. I mean, we're all off, right?
well, yeah, it's a day of rest, right? So, last word for everybody, Eric.
Well, Nate, thanks for coordinating this. It's so much fun to get together and do this. And it was the type of thing where I knew I missed it, but I didn't know exactly how much until I started doing it again. So it's so much fun to get back and see everybody and to have these conversations. As I've always said, there's no one else in my life that I can talk to anyone about any of this. So I try, but they all just stare at me like I have two heads. So thanks for letting me talk about all this fun stuff. So anyway, everybody have a great week. See you next week.
Well, thank you very much for being here, Eric. It's more fun when you are. Eris.
Thank you for keeping the show going, Eric and Nate. And thank you to whoever created all your base belong to us.
You can thank 1989 for that. Zero wing.
Cool.
Adam.
Thanks for putting this on, Nate, and all the rest of you except for Vince. Thanks for coming by. And it was a good chat. And you guys are fun. So
Well,
take it easy.
Well, thanks, Adam, for being here. It's always nice to hear your booming baritone. Grace.
I try.
Grace.
And we have
the
to throw
live
some
stream.
barbs at Vince. We just it's a requirement. It's written down in the bylaws somewhere.
Yeah. It's,
Well, you
it's
sort-
somewhere. Just don't go looking for it.
No,
just
it's there.
Just trust us.
It's there. Yeah,
If not, we can quickly add it.
exactly. Jason, how about you? Let's give us some
Well-
pearls of wisdom.
All I got, the only wisdom I have is that I love this. I mean, there's nothing else to say about being able to hang out with people that enjoy talking about Linux and other things tech, and just be able to have a place to get together and get that off, get that discussions rolling and be able to learn new things. Like I've got a couple more distros of Linux to check out now. I think one of them was the Gecko, and another one the Bodhi. I've got them downloaded. We'll put them on into VMs and test them out. But anyway, it just thanks to Nate and Eric for allowing us to have this place to be able to have these discussions. And Steve, I'll see you in the morning.
Excellent. Thank you. Big Pod. Last word, buddy.
Thank you everybody for having. Thank you everybody for watching. And everybody, use Ubuntu. Don't use that good stuff like Fedora or OpenSUSE. You must use the best stuff, Ubuntu, especially Ubuntu Mate.
I think he's a bit
I would
biased.
expect.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would expect nothing less from you, Big Pod.
He's not-
And also catch
It's one
Big
thing he's
Pod,
not-
He's
he's
been
not-
doing some.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
He's not shy.
He's not at all
Opinionated.
opinionated. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I knew that's what you were gonna say. Yeah, and check out Big Pod's been doing some streams recently of some programming, which is always fun to check out. So, all right, Jinda.
Thanks for having me, everybody, and thanks for the whole thing. It's just fantastic being here, and I'll see you guys hopefully next week.
Excellent. And Vince, I always want to hear words of wisdom from down under from you.
So the first bit of advice to Adam is I think you should get that wind problem of yours looked at. Just a bit of advice. Just with the last bit of the show being about things going away, there is actually one more thing going away that's going to make me very, very sad, and that's Charlie Bit My Finger. Have you guys heard about that? The original,
right?
yeah, the original uploaders of the video are taking it down to be able to sell it as an NFT. So that's the way of the world these days.
And it's
Anyway,
been downloaded
thanks, Nate.
innumerable times, yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Nate. Love you all. Take care. See you next week.
All right. Colin, our other Australian. You guys
From
are
down
back
under.
to back tonight.
Yeah, mate. Yep. Thanks for having this. Thanks, Nathan, for putting it on. And Eric, good to see you again. You're sort of in and out at the moment, so I'm not sure if that's a health issue or not. And I think Aris is helping out as well, isn't he? So you three guys, awesome job. Thanks. And see you all next week. Take care, everyone.
Well, thank you very much. It's always fun to have you here. I know you have to. You're either up early or up late. I don't know what you're doing, but it's nice to have you.
No, I was
you and
actually
Vince.
I was editing a video and I didn't know how to insert something in KDN Live and it was driving me nuts and still haven't worked it out. It's just I did it the long way.
Oh. Well, glad you stopped for a bit. So is it Arlo or Lado? I don't know if you want to kick something out if you can. It's nice to have you here.
You
first
certainly
time.
don't have to say anything if you don't want. We're just happy to see you. I mean, it was great to have you join. If you'd like to say hello, feel free. I know his internet he's in Chile and his internet is not great. So we're probably just going to get a wave out of him. But please come back next week if you can.
So appreciate
and
it.
would love to have you. All right, Peter.
I've had a very quiet week tech-wise because I'm back to work full-time, which I'm really enjoying. I love working at the food bank, you all know that. And my wife is doing very well too. I've been helping look after her operation recently. So, but life is good, and it's good being with you guys.
Well, we're glad you're here for sure. You add a certain kind of Scotsman spice to the whole thing, so I appreciate that.
Also, Peter had not heard of Homestar Runner before, so
Not until today. And what's all this bass talk? All these basses. What's that?
all your bass, you come on, you've heard
I
of
have
that.
I have no idea
You
what
have
that
no
is.
idea, huh? Well, let me inform you.
Oh, your base.
That's right.
I've heard the term, but I've never really referenced it.
Love it.
It's all about that bass, Pete.
Oh, it's a song. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peter,
it's from a video
we
game.
just tell you to make your time, okay?
Right.
I think Eris has
Have
something
no
in the
chance to
chat.
survive.
Yeah, Eris
That's right.
put a link in the chat that they can actually
Remember
watch
the
it.
bass that sung on the wall? Remember that?
Oh, it's worth watching just to get the nostalgia. It's dripping in nostalgia.
Yeah. Well, Steve, you kind of popped in and out and out and then back in, and
Zoom was between
problems?
Zoom, my son being loud, and
Oh, it's
struggling
always
all
someone
day with
else's fault,
It
Steve.
is.
It
It's
is.
always
Yeah,
never-
never-
it's Vince. You know,
Probably Vince, yeah.
I can't tell you the crap that he does. Sorry, I
Just
was
blame
late, though,
Vince.
but it's been a struggling day for me with my back, and I have made dinner and that. And I'm so sorry that you guys will have to wait till the morning to find out what I'm going to say about Bodie Lennox.
Oh,
I guess we will.
Well,
I'll be
see,
there.
there's a teaser for you. That's how
Like-
that works.
It's like Christmas Eve night, man.
Now
Just
you
can't
know
wait.
you
I
had to be
know.
there to watch
Yeah.
the show just to know.
Exactly. All right.
No, thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Joe, good to see you
Hello.
join again.
Thanks. Sorry I was late, but had stuff to do. But good to be here.
You were
Hang
late because you
on.
were installing Linux, right?
I'm sure not.
No.
He's supposed to
but-
swing by one of these days.
Yeah.
He popped in when we started talking about Internet Explorer.
That's one of those. Yeah. Mhm.
Irony. No.
He didn't install Linux, but he did stay at a Holiday Inn once.
Just once, until they kicked him out. They barred him from all future Holiday Inn Express visits.
but I kept the card. No, but actually, while I started the chat tonight, I was downloading LibreOffice, so I'm going to use that. I've been working on writing my script for the next video. It's probably going to be a long one, and I've been using OpenOffice, like I said previously, and there have been some issues with it, so I'm looking forward to trying this out. So
You should try
see how
Kden
it
Live as a
works,
video
but-
editor, and then after that, there's nothing else you need your Windows for. So thanks for being here.
Happy to oblige.
All right, I want to thank all of you for joining both in the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream. I want to thank Rocco once again for starting the Biddle community, Eric for his use of the Zoom account because I'm too cheap to buy one for myself, and everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also have a fun and enjoyable technology experience. Because, you know, Linux and open source truly makes personal computers, or truly puts personal back into personal computers. So thank you, and we'll see you.
Take care, y'all.
Bye. See you later.